Good morning, everybody. Thank you for watching. I've had this on my mind for a while, and honestly, I'm ready to I'm ready to sell my Arias and some of the other mid-range IEMs that I have. So, what I wanted to do is talk about my journey with bass-leaning IEMs, namely starting with the Aria. So we're going to start with a short review of the Aria, and then I'm going to talk about some of the alternatives and the pros and cons of some of the other kind of more bass-focused IEMs that I've tried over the last few months, and hopefully this can serve as a guide to those that are new and want to look at a new IEM. They like bass, and they're trying to kind of figure out the best fit. So usually when you start out, these are going to be the first IEMs that are recommended to you, or they're going to be one of the more popular ones that you see on YouTube. As you can see here, they're really pretty looking at a glance. Now, just so you know, a lot of people have, I don't use mine much so you don't see it, but if you really zoom in, you can see a little bit of paint chipping. The paint tends to wear out on these. And in terms of the build quality, these ear hooks are a little weird, but they're okay. They fit your ears all right. And they've got this kind of weird braided cable where, say, if you look at something like even something cheap like the BL03, you see this is just like this thin. I prefer this style where this, roped nylon kind of look is just weird for me. It's not my favorite. So already the Aria has fallen a little bit behind on build quality for me. But I'd heard so many good things about it that I bought it because I wanted to hear what it sounded like. And I kept waiting for it to wow me, and it never quite did. And so I'm just going to tell you my impressions. I don't know what people's motivations are, but I can tell you, for me, when you listen to this, and maybe it's a good first step. Like if you're coming from beats, this might be a good first step. But what I hear with these is, say, compared to neutral, you get an elevated bass response, but the bass is mostly sub-bass leaning, and as a result of that, or the way that they tuned it, it's a little on the boomy side. It's not a mess, but it's a little boomy. And I feel like to make up for that in the mids, they have vocals where the vocals are a little thinner, but very clear, so that they can kind of peek through the mud on the bass side. And they also have what feels like a treble roll-off. So, and this might be good, again, if you just listen to hip-hop or EDM and you just want to feel the beat and hear the voice, maybe this is a good first step. But the longer I get into this hobby, the less I like these, because you literally, a third of the music, that's, unless you're listening to very simplistic music, you don't hear. So anything that is kind of the spice on top of your music, any of the upper treble sounds, whether it be a cymbal or any kind of sharper tinkly sounds, this basically just like blends them away where you can barely hear them. And it is a pleasant listening experience, probably if you're not paying too much attention, but for me, who got into audiophile stuff because I wanted to know more about all the details of the music and hear it in a very clear way, this doesn't work for me. It bothers me because after a few minutes, after the wearing off of hearing the bass goes away, it just kind of feels like I've got bass, I've got the vocals kind of peeking through the bass, and that's it. And that's all that you get. And maybe it's a good first step. If that sounds good to you, then this could be good. If you're not wanting to reveal all the details of the music and you just really want a thumpy, head-bobbing experience, it can be a good option. But I'm going to talk about the direct competitor to this that I'd recommend instead. Let's see here. Okay. So this is the Tin T3 Plus. As you can see here, it's got a resin shell. It's not painted, so it should last longer. It's a little lighter feeling too. I don't know if it, it feels better in quality in the sense that it's lighter, but it feels lesser in quality because it doesn't have a metal shell. But when they get into your ear, they feel great, and you just kind of forget about them. What I like better about this is, one, like I said, the resin shell and the way that it's made, it should last longer in terms of the, no paint chipping off. I like the cable a ton better. And you see this rope rope verse. This just feels more natural to me than this weird nylon rope thing. So I'm already way ahead on build quality. In my opinion, I think that it's built a lot better. But where it really comes out ahead is that I spent some more time listening this morning. I've had all these for months, and just want to make sure that I remembered everything accurately, so that if you're just getting into this hobby, I can give you my best advice. And my best advice would be, if you're interested in the Aria, if you want something with a little bit more bass, a little bit more fun, to look at these instead. And the reason why is these give you the bass that the Aria does. It's not quite as sub-bass leaning, so you don't get as much rumble, but it also means it feels cleaner. It feels more mid-bass focused. It feels more punchy rather than rumbly in a clean way. And I wouldn't say one is better than the other in the sense of whether you like rumble or you like the tight bass, but the way that they've tuned this, it also seems like they've left more room where it doesn't muddy up the vocal and treble range. So when you listen to the T3 Plus, you get that tight bass response, but you also get a very natural sounding neutral mids, and you get all the detail of the treble that you're missing with the Aria. The only thing that isn't perfect about these, you don't get a very big, it doesn't feel like a very big soundstage with this, and the mids, although clear, are a little laid back. So if you're really into sparkly vocal forward mids, this probably isn't the perfect set for you, but it actually holds its own when it comes to listening to vocal tracks as well. But I'd say this would be mostly leaning towards somebody that listens to a little bit of everything, especially like rock and hip hop and EDM and things like that. But you might listen to, really just about anything these work pretty well for. But if you specialize in a certain area, like if you specifically listen to instrumental tracks or something like that, these might not be the ones for you, but you probably aren't looking for a bass-focused IEM if that's the case anyway. So then we're going to look at some ones that are kind of are different flavors of bass-focused and what they appeal to me for. Okay, so this is the Blon BL03 IEM. This one is probably one of the ones that got everybody started. This is kind of the grandfather of bass-focused fun IEMs. As you can see here, I also did a review on this one specifically if you want to watch it. But this one the cable is built so weird that when you get it, you kind of have to like loosen this up, or else when it sits in your ear, it kind of like pops out. And I also had to replace the stock tips with spin fit tips, and I went a size larger than I normally do because when they sit in your ear, they almost want to pop out. It's like your seal is kind of shallow for it to be comfortable. So I'd recommend getting some spin fits. I can put a link in the description, and making it the size bigger than you usually use. And you get a fun, peppy, it's kind of like laid back vocals, but with just a little bit of peakiness in there that makes it fun, and a kind of punchy bass. And you still get a little bit of treble, but it's definitely not, like if you listen to female vocalists or something like that, it's probably not the move for you. This is a little bit warm, it's a little bit laid back in the vocals. It works great for stuff like 90s grunge and like, things like that, where you just kind of like, you want to kind of boost the bass, you want it to sound more fun, but you don't want to get killed in your ears by, rockers screaming in your ear, that kind of thing. It sounds really great for that. And all in, I want to say, so these are like 25, but then by the time that you buy the upgraded tips and stuff, you're more at like 40. I'd rather listen to these than the Aria, honestly, because the Aria I lose all the treble, and I don't think it's worth it. So the next step up from that, this is the Tripowin Mele. The Tripowin Mele was basically inspired by the Blon BL03. As you can see, you get a lot better construction in terms of this metal shell. It does fit a little bit shallow, so I use different tips, like the ones that come with the standard are pretty flat and wide and have trouble staying in my ears. I would recommend tips that fit a little bit deeper with them. And you lose a little bit of what the Blon BL03 gives you in terms of the peppiness and in fun. Like it smooths out the bass, and you get like a deeper, richer kind of bass response, but it feels more leveled out, where the Blon feels a little more punchy. and you don't get those little spikes of kind of spiciness in the mids and treble that make it a little bit more fun for the Blon. And none of those spikes bother me with the Blon. They actually make it fun. But what the Mele does is it smooths out all that stuff. You get like smooth deep bass, smooth mid bass, like everything is smooth together. But it can also be a little bit boring in that way, in that you don't have a lot of sparkle in them. But if you like, you like deep bass and you kind of want like laid back vocals so that you can crank it up some, it doesn't pierce your ears, and treble isn't that spicy. These are really good ones for just kind of chill, laid back, especially for rock, rap, things like that. These work really well with. They do not work as well for female vocalist tracks. The next one that I want to talk about is, this is another one that was made by Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews. He's actually the one that tuned the Mele as well. This one is the Tripowin, and I'm getting all my... Olina, that's the name of it. So this is the Tripowin Olina. It uses the same similar shells. Just something to mention, I have not had any problem with condensation, but some people do say when they use these that if they leave them in their ear too long, they develop condensation and it messes these up. So I've never had that issue. I'd say if you just take them out every half an hour for a few minutes, then you should be fine. But I don't know. All I can tell you is that I have not personally had problems with these. I also replaced the tips with spin fit tips because I feel like it gives you a little bit better bass response. And inside of the box with these, you get a set of filters, and they're basically just little stickers. And underneath, like if you just pop off this tip here, so that's your filter. And if you just add a second layer of filter, it tends to bring the bass out just a little bit, and it kind of tames down the treble. These are a little bit treble spicy out of the box, but I found they sound perfect to me after I added that filter, and especially when I changed out for these spin fit tips, it gave me a little bit better bass, and it just seemed to even it out. And these are some of my favorite IEMs to use. Now, I will say, after the mods that I just talked about there, then you do get a satisfying bass response, but these are not bass head IEMs. They'll give you a nice little pop and thump, but they're not going to be super detailed. They're not going to give you super deep bass rumble. They're just going to give you that little pop. But where these really excel is that they give you a sense of like a 3D kind of soundstage. So with these, I feel like you hear like layers to the music. You hear, it's like you got the vocals in the front, and then you might have a drum off to the side, and then like you really feel like a layered sense of sound, which is really cool. And may not be everybody's thing, but these are like, I really like bass, and these give me enough bass to be satisfied. They're not super deep bass, but the star of the show is all of the vocals and instruments that are all layered separately, and it really kind of gives you this cool 3D soundstage kind of feel for some songs, which I think is really worth experiencing. But this is more like $100 pair. The Mele's, those are about $50. The BL03 with the upgrades are about $40. And I think the Aria and the T3 Plus are both in that $70 to $80 range, depending on if there's a sale or something that day. The final one I want to talk about here, where if you just want to skip all the mid-range and get something that you'll probably love forever and not really feel the need to update, this is the Ikko OH10. As you can see here, so this is actually made out of metal. I believe the inside of this is copper. When you pick it up, you feel this sense of quality and thorough in terms of the build. It feels heavy. But when you put this in your ear, it kind of disappeared. Like ergonomically, it's great. It fits into your ear really well. But you do get the sense of weight and quality when you hold this in your ear. And with this, you don't get the kind of 3D soundstage that you do with the Olina. But what you do get, which is really cool, is it almost feels like a subwoofer with a separate speaker kind of setup, where you get very deep, thumpy, like whatever bass you want. It feels like it can handle it thoroughly. Like it's not even trying to flex. It's not even bothered by whatever you throw at it. It just feels really strong. But it's very clean at the same time. And the way that they created it, you can hear all of your vocals and instrument separation and everything without any kind of feeling of bleed between the vocals and the bass. So you don't get like the 3D soundstage as much. It doesn't sound like everything's laid out quite that much, but you do get this incredibly detailed sense of like, I've got great bass and I've got great vocals and clarity for instruments and detail, and they don't conflict with each other at all. And it just makes it a really cool listening experience. So you can see I'm a big fan of these tips. I use the spin fit tips on these, and this, I don't know, it just gives it the best kind of quality for me, where I feel like I get the cleanest sense of detail and smoothness through all the ranges. And these are usually 150 to 2. I think I bought mine for 150. I think they go for 180 right now at drop. But I'd say if you want something bass focused and you just want to be happy for a while and not have to mess with a bunch of different ones and you don't mind saving a few extra dollars, I would just buy the OH10s and I think you'd be happy for a long time. Bonus pick here. These are the what is it? Yeah, these are the Blon Fat Girls. That's the name of the IEM. I didn't make up the name. So I ordered these the day that came out just because I was more curious than anything. I've heard everybody slam these and say how bad they are. I don't think they're bad. Maybe it's just the way my ears are. But essentially what these guys give you is they get, they make my head nod with the way the bass is. It's not overly done, but it is punchy and fun the way that they did the bass. And the way that they tuned it is a little bit sharp, like in the treble and the upper mids, but it gives you the sense of separation. So you get this like mini cheapo version of like what the Ikko does, where you've got this bass underlying that sounds good, and then you've got a separate, pretty clear, although a little bit robotic and not greatly, what's the best word for it? Not greatly resolving vocal, but I'd say if you've got a kid, you don't have a lot of money, you don't want to buy them like cheapo stuff, but you really don't want to buy them expensive audio things, and they listen to something that's basically bass focused, and you just want to hand them something. I wouldn't say these aren't bad. Like, I would use these. These are kind of things where I brought them to work, I kind of enjoyed them, and like half an hour later you kind of get sick of it because it's a little bit much. But I think for anybody that doesn't have super discerning taste, like especially kids, these might be a good option just for $10 to give it to them, and they're fine for me. If you look at the build quality, like this is complete plastic. Like these are basically like vending machine quality in terms of the way that they're built, but they sound good. And I finally figured out too, maybe some of the problem people are having is that, okay, so you see this, so you would just think you pop this in your ear and you just let it sit down like this, but it doesn't seal very well. What I figured out is that when it goes in your ear, you put it up like this, and then it kind of goes up into your ear canal like that, and then I got a good seal out of it. So maybe that's part of the problem people are having with sound. Again, it's only $10, so I wouldn't expect the world out of it, but in a pinch, I wouldn't mind listening to these. If I was stuck on an airplane, that was all I had, then I'd be like, oh, phew, at least I got those with me. So anyway, that's what I got. I wanted to kind of tell you guys, I see so many people that are looking for kind of bass-focused IEMs and kind of talk about my experience with the ones I have here. I'll probably do, more individual reviews, but in terms of a roundup and, hey, I'm thinking about getting the Aria, what should I get? These are my thoughts on kind of what's available under a couple $100. And if there's other ones that you guys really like or think I should try, definitely let me know. I'm going to continue kind of buying stuff, rotating stuff out. I'm probably going to sell the Aria and T3 Plus soon because I've got, the Olina and the, especially the OH10 kind of makes them all redundant. And I appreciate you guys watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.